Last evening, my spouse, aged 31, divulged to me an unsettling occurrence. His employer had requisitioned his presence for an additional shift due to inadequate staffing, thereby precluding our shared Valentine's Day celebration. Although disconcerting, I resignedly accepted the situation, cognizant that our observance of this romantic occasion typically eschews extravagance in favor of simple pleasures such as cinematic indulgence and intimate embraces. However, this year deviated from the norm due to the presence of our infant daughter, infusing a tinge of disappointment into my acquiescence. His workday, spanning from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., has faithfully adhered to an unvarying routine over the past 9 years, punctuated by consistent break intervals. It bears mention that my conveyance was undergoing repairs and not slated for retrieval until the 16th. Yet, to my surprise, a fortuitous completion prompted an earlier call from him around 11 a.m. Consequently, accompanied by our daughter, I embarked on a brief excursion to reclaim my vehicle, a mere quarter-mile distant. En route, a serendipitous encounter unfolded at a local gas station cum eatery, where I espied my husband's vehicle, a puzzling revelation given its incongruence with his usual trajectory. Intrigued, I ventured inside, only to discover him in the company of his mother. While ostensibly innocuous, this rendezvous belied a recent agreement wherein we collectively opted for estrangement from her presence. This resolve stemmed from a regrettable incident wherein she administered a slap to our daughter's visage, resulting in a crimson welt precipitated by an innocuous nibble indicative of teething discomfort. Approaching their table, I initiated a conversation, prompting my husband's abrupt departure under the pretext of maternal companionship on Valentine's Day, a pretext that crumbled upon scrutiny, inciting my rebuke. Unperturbed by the accusatory gazes of nearby diners, I unabashedly articulated my grievances, highlighting the breach of trust and parental obligation incurred by his surreptitious dalliance. Subsequently, as I retreated to my vehicle amidst the murmurs of onlookers, he pursued, proffering feeble justifications and admonitions. His reproach, laden with indignation, only served to underscore the moral bankruptcy of his actions, a sentiment further compounded upon discovering a substantial expenditure at his mother's favored antique emporium, financed in part by our shared resources. In the aftermath, I invoked a temporary freeze on our joint bank account, motivated by a sense of fiscal prudence and indignation. Seeking solace in the counsel of a confidant, I found myself assailed by doubts regarding the propriety of my actions. However, her assertion that my response was disproportionate fails to acknowledge the gravity of his transgression or the erosion of trust engendered thereby. My daughter and I departed amidst a tumultuous exchange. She resisted my directive to vacate, precipitating my decision to leave in lieu of her compliance. Despite repeated entreaties from both myself and my husband, her obstinacy prevailed. He purportedly summoned law enforcement, although subsequent revelations cast doubt upon the veracity of his claim. The authorities' disinterest in pursuing the matter further underscores my misgivings regarding his honesty. A confidant, echoing sentiments of indignation, urged me to seek redress for his duplicity and betrayal. His clandestine liaison with his mother, culminating in a lavish Valentine's Day indulgence, constitutes a flagrant breach of trust compounded by her egregious transgression against our infant daughter. Urged to confront him and solicit evidence of his purported police report, I am poised to safeguard both my own interests and those of our child. The outpouring of support from online forums reinforces the gravity of his misconduct and emboldens my resolve to confront him decisively. Amidst a sea of condemnations for his actions, a disheartening realization crystallizes. I am wedded not to a partner, but to a spineless progeny of maternal influence. Regarding the discord between my adolescent offspring, the prevailing dispute over sartorial propriety underscores deeper tensions regarding bodily autonomy and familial expectations. My daughter, emboldened by her discomfort and principle, asserts her right to eschew restrictive undergarments within the confines of our domicile. Conversely, my son, driven by newfound self-awareness, implores for modesty, citing personal discomfort. Attempting to mediate this familial impasse, I am confronted with the complexity of gendered expectations and bodily agency. My daughter's impassioned plea for parity underscores broader disparities in social norms, wherein her brother's anatomical autonomy remains unencumbered by restrictive attire. As familial tensions mount, A delicate balance must be struck between individual autonomy and familial harmony, lest discord metastasize into irreparable schism. My daughter's retort to her brother's discomfort exhibited a commendable maturity, acknowledging the validity of his sentiments without resorting to derision. I endeavored to extend this equilibrium to my son, suggesting that if discomfort were truly reciprocal, he might consider adopting modest attire when traversing beyond his quarters. His unexpected tears, however, cast a shadow of misunderstanding over our exchange, prompting introspection into the unintended implications of my words. Despite my earnest intentions, my son's emotional response burgeoned into a rift, compounded by my wife's reproach for my perceived insensitivity. The realization of his vulnerability to issues of body image, coupled with my wife's admonishment, elicited profound remorse, propelling repeated attempts at reconciliation. Regrettably, my overtures were met with silence and withdrawal, underscoring the profundity of his distress. The ensuing chorus of condemnation from external voices further underscored the complexity of the situation, prompting a reevaluation of my approach. While my initial intent was rooted in a desire for equity and familial harmony, the fallout necessitates a more nuanced approach, one cognizant of individual sensitivities and societal pressures. In parallel, the impending birthdays of my stepchildren beckoned the commencement of familial traditions, prompting a nostalgic reverie tinged with ambivalence. The legacy of a luggage-centric tradition, originating from my ex-wife's lineage, invokes a sense of detachment as I grapple with my role within this familial tableau. Despite its genesis in a bygone era, the tradition persists, a testament to the enduring legacy of familial customs and the intergenerational transmission of values. My youngest daughter, the Benjamin of the clan on that side, reached the threshold of 13 amidst a confluence of familial and circumstantial events. It was during this juncture, with the imminent retirement of her Anne and the backdrop of personal tumult, that an unconventional decision coalesced to bestow upon her the familial heirloom of a luggage set, ensuring her inclusion within the established lineage of tradition. While the gesture was undoubtedly imbued with familial sentiment, I found myself grappling with the ostentatiousness of the tradition. The exorbitant expense associated with such extravagance, even at a discounted rate, struck a discordant note within my sensibilities. A sum as exorbitant as $1,000, let alone the prospect of $4,000 for each subsequent offspring, seemed an unwarranted indulgence, one that neither my conscience nor my financial prudence could reconcile. My attempts to articulate this perspective were met with resistance, with my wife espousing the notion that acquiescence to the familial custom constituted an implicit endorsement thereof. However, my reluctance to conform was not born of apathy towards my stepchildren, but rather a principled objection to the extravagance and impracticality of the tradition. It is one thing to accept a gift out of practicality, quite another to acquiesce to the whims of convention at the expense of fiscal prudence. The ensuing outcry and accusations of partiality only served to exacerbate my dilemma, thrusting me into the role of a reluctant arbiter amidst familial discord. While cognizant of the potential for misunderstandings and hurt feelings, my adherence to principle remains steadfast, a stance that, regrettably, has cast me in the unenviable role of antagonist within the familial narrative. As the debate rages on, I am reminded of the complexities inherent within blended families, wherein divergent traditions and values converge, often with discordant results. My steadfast refusal to capitulate to the dictates of convention may, in the eyes of some, be construed as callousness or favoritism. Yet, beneath the veneer of familial tradition lies a deeper principle, one that prioritizes fiscal prudence and equity over ostentation and extravagance. My stepdaughter, a constant source of delight with her vivacious presence, unfortunately possesses a musical inclination that challenges my equanimity. It's not the songs themselves that irk me, but rather her penchant for incessantly replaying the same half-dozen tracks ad nauseam. Post Malone's Circles, Shawn Mendes Stitches, and Nothing Holding Me Back Halsey's Without Me, a smattering of BTS tunes, and Doja Cat's Kiss Me More constitute her sonic repertoire played on an endless loop. The crux of the issue arises when she commandeers the communal living space, commandeering the Alexa device to blast her chosen tracks at deafening volumes. Despite my polite entreaties to keep the noise at a tolerable level, she persists in setting the volume to ear-splitting levels, drowning out any semblance of tranquility in the household. A recent altercation reached a crescendo when, amidst her chore of dishwashing, I implored her to lower the volume to a more reasonable level. In response, she defiantly cranked up the volume and met my request with a derisive smirk, prompting a decisive intervention on my part. I promptly disconnected the Alexa device and informed her that its usage privileges were henceforth revoked. While my husband advocates for a more lenient approach, urging acceptance of her musical predilections as an expression of identity, I remain steadfast in my resolve. The issue transcends mere musical preferences. It speaks to a broader disregard for communal harmony and mutual respect within the household. Notably, my stepdaughter possesses ample alternatives for indulging in her musical preferences, including personal headphones, a tablet, and her own Spotify account. Her reluctance to utilize these options in deference to her purported pet peeve serves as a testament to her obstinacy and disregard for others' comfort. My decision to curtail her access to the Alexa device was not an arbitrary act of retribution, but rather a measured response to her persistent flouting of household norms. While her indignation may be palpable, it pales in comparison to the toll exacted by her auditory assault on our collective sanity. My half-sister finds herself grappling with the weighty decision of impending motherhood, her resolve firm against the specter of abortion and adoption alike. Unfortunately, familial support for her decision to keep the baby remains conspicuously absent, with both her father and mother advocating for a starkly individualistic path forward. Their admonition that she navigate the challenges of parenthood in isolation and vacate familial premises upon reaching legal adulthood casts a shadow over her prospects, devoid of familial solace or stability. Meanwhile, my husband and I traverse our own labyrinth of reproductive challenges, having embarked on the arduous journey of fostering, only to witness the wrenching dissolution of those bonds upon the child's return to their biological family. The prospect of a private adoption now beckons, a glimmer of hope amidst the tumult of uncertainty. Yet, tempered by the specter of past disappointments, we tread cautiously, mindful of the fragile nature of our aspirations. Amidst this maelstrom of familial and personal upheaval, my sister proffers a proposition fraught with complexity, a proposal for us to assume custodial responsibilities for her child in the interim, whilst she endeavors to establish a foothold in her professional and personal spheres. Her rationale, while rooted in pragmatism, fails to account for the logistical and emotional complexities inherent within such an arrangement. The prospect of concurrently caring for two infants, each with divergent familial ties and uncertain futures, looms large, a daunting proposition compounded by the possibility of heartbreak should custody be reclaimed by my sister at a later juncture. The analogy of assuming responsibility for her house, with all its attendant financial and logistical burdens, resonates as a poignant metaphor for the potential pitfalls of such an arrangement. Furthermore, my sister's insistence on the temporary nature of the arrangement belies the profound implications for the child's well-being and stability, thrust into a transient existence devoid of permanence or predictability. As custodians of these fragile lives, we are duty-bound to prioritize their welfare above all else, lest they become pawns in the vicissitudes of familial dynamics. In conclusion, while my sister's proposal emanates from a place of desperation and pragmatism, its execution would entail a myriad of ethical and practical considerations. As stewards of our own familial unit, we must navigate these treacherous waters with due diligence and discernment, cognizant of the profound implications for all parties involved.